Hello again, everybody. We are here. We're still talking about A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf. I expect this video is going to be a little shorter because there's probably less that's going to set me off on a wild, rambly rant. But what I want to talk a little bit about is, in fact, the writing style of the book. And one of the reasons I adore reading it is not just because of the ideas. The ideas are great and they're huge, and they every now and again make me stop and just sort of stare into the middle distance for a while. But what I also really like is just the style of it. And part of Woolf's style is, in fact, this rambling, discursive, almost in some cases stream of consciousness thought, where she will start with an idea and just run with it for a while until she's interrupted by something, which happens a lot in this book. And she does this in a lot of ways. First of all is the fictionalizing of her search for meaning. So the book itself is put together from a couple of speeches that she made at these women's colleges about women in fiction, and it was then compiled into this one very long essay. And what she has done for this essay is she's created a fictional persona of herself, Mary. There's a lot of Marys in this book. And she offers that up as a way to take all of her thoughts and all of her thinking and compress that into sort of a 2-day journey where Mary goes to different places and experiences different things. She goes to a couple of colleges. She goes to the British Museum. She spends time in a cake shop and in her own flat, and spends all this time sort of thinking through these ideas of women in fiction and why don't women write fiction, and what do men write about women when they write fiction and things of that nature. And so her first task for us is a literary task, is a literary choice, and that's what I'm trying to stay focused on here, and it's real hard. As a literary choice is to fictionalize her search for truth. She says, very early in the book, I need not say that what I am about to describe has no existence. Oxbridge is an invention, so is Fernham. I is only a convenient term for somebody who has no real being. Lies will flow from my lips, but there may perhaps be some truth mixed up with them. It is for you to seek out this truth and to decide whether any part of it is worth keeping. If not, you will, of course, throw the whole of it into the waste paper basket and forget all about it. And I find myself wondering, why do this? Why create this fictional journey through her thought processes instead of just laying things out straight and true, as it were? And in talking to my students yesterday, I was saying that a Virginia Woolf of today, maybe doing a TED Talk on women in fiction, would probably bring up a lot of graphs and charts, and here's the research that I did, and here's some stuff that I found, and would tell a much more true story. But Woolf has decided to fictionalize this, and I find myself wondering, well, why do that? And I suspect part of it is because certainly a lot of the ideas that she is producing in this book were not ideas that just came to her recently. They are probably ideas that she has worked out over a long, long, long time. And Woolf herself has a lifetime of talking to intellectuals and really interesting people, right? She's part of the Bloomsbury Group, which is a famous group of intellectuals and thinkers in the early 20th century, where she would just hang out. And God, I would love to be part of a Bloomsbury Group, but every single day, I would suspect that I'm not good enough for that group if I were. But anyway, she would hang out with these brilliant people and talk about stuff and life and the world, and they would pick apart sort of commonly accepted ideas and what's going on, and they would just sit there as a salon of really bright people and just sort of think and talk and have a great time. So I imagine a lot of the ideas that are coming from her here are from these conversations, are from the work that she has done over the course of years. And that's maybe less interesting, and she wants to take all of that and just compress it into a narrative which takes much less time and seems not linear, because Woolf's writing doesn't always follow a straight line, but at the very least it follows a path that one can follow as it were a story. And as I've written fiction myself, as an avid reader of fiction, I am always interested in the curious fact, let's call it, that fiction, which is by definition not true, it is lies, right? There are no hobbits, there is no Starship Enterprise, there is no Superman. Those things do not have any real existence in the world in the same way that you and I have an existence in the world, if in fact we do have an existence in the world, which is a whole other philosophical question. Go over to Wisecrack, they probably talk about it. But anyway, Fiction is not real. Fiction is lies. Somebody made it up. And yet, we learn incredible truths from fiction. We learn moral truths. We learn about what it is to be a good person. We learn about making hard choices from fiction. We learn about what it means to be a friend, what it means to be a lover, what it means when you have to make that choice to give up on the thing that you thought you always wanted, right? All of these things we learn from fiction, which is not true. And so I am fascinated by that fact. I find it really, really interesting. And I'm kind of glad that Woolf took that up and she decided to make use of the idea that we will often use fiction as a vehicle for larger truths that maybe telling the truth isn't always going to communicate quite as well. And honestly, you know, people will listen to stories and they will believe a story before they believe a real fact in a lot of cases. But anyway, that's off topic. Not really, it's not off topic. Why did I even say that? See, Woolf, what have you done to me? Anyway, so yeah, the fictionalizing of her search for meaning I find really interesting as a writing choice. She writes, as I said, in kind of a stream of consciousness sense where she will kind of get an idea and follow it and see where it goes. And she actually illustrates this with a wonderful metaphor, one of many wonderful metaphors, where she talks about kind of thinking about this task that's been set before her, women in fiction. And she says that she went to the college, Oxbridge College, to hang out, and there's an undergraduate on his boat going down the stream, and Woolf says, thought, to call it by a prouder name than it deserved, had let its line down into the stream. It swayed minute after minute, hither and thither among the reflections and the weeds, letting the water lift it and sink it until, you know the little tug, the sudden conglomeration of an idea at the end of one's line, and the curious hauling of it in and the careful laying of it out. Alas, on the grass, how small, how insignificant this thought of mine looked. The sort of fish that a good fisherman puts back into the water so it may grow fatter and may one day be worth cooking and eating. So I like this metaphor, comparing the process of thought to like the process of fishing, right? You can't go hunt an idea. You can't go, stake out a spot and then get it. You kind of have to let your line out. You kind of have to just sort of stop and let the idea come to you and see if it's well developed enough, see if it's good enough to start working on, or whether you kind of have to throw it back in the water and let it grow a little bit, let it mature and get bigger and better and more worthy of your table. I don't know. But that kind of sets us up for the way that Woolf writes, is that she's not hunting ideas down. She's not looking for tracks in the forest and saying, the idea went that way. She's not staking out a blind in the woods to try to shoot the idea with an arrow and take it down. She is fishing. She is letting the idea come to her. She's allowing the stream of her mind to go past and seeing what it produces. And that's true for the book as a whole. There are quite a few places where she seems to be going off into a place where you're like, why is she going off on this strange path of ideas? But because she is a good writer, because Woolf knows what she's doing, she is able to bring it back around. And by the time you're done with that section, you understand why she is able to link those ideas, or why that pursuit of that idea is part of the pursuit of women in fiction, which is her overall goal. And as with the fish idea there, she does make wonderful use of metaphors and analogies and things like that I really, really like. When she gets to the lunch at Oxbridge with the beautiful food and the good people and the wine, and she says, and thus by degrees was lit, halfway down the spine, which is the seat of the soul, not that hard little electric light which we call brilliance as it pops in and out upon our lips, but the more profound, subtle, and subterranean glow, which is the rich yellow flame of rational intercourse. And I love that image. It's beautiful, right? And it really encapsulates for me that feeling of being comfortable and sitting with friends and kind of chatting ideas as they come. And you're just trying to explore the world in your mind, but you're comfortable enough to do that, right? You're not trying to be smart. You're not trying to be brilliant or funny or witty. You're just talking and enjoying each other's ideas. I love that. I love it. A little later on, she has another analogy of trying to find what she calls the essential oil of truth as she's doing her research, and the idea that you have to kind of skim off the top of all sorts of bad ideas and come up with this essential oil, this heart of what the truth is. And so Woolf makes a lot of use out of really good analogies and metaphors and symbolism. The room itself as a symbol, the room of the title, A Room of One's Own. it doesn't have to be a literal room, of course. What the room stands for is control over your life. The room is a metaphor for your ability to make a place for yourself where you're not going to be interrupted. It is a metaphor for your ability to be independent and live your life, right? And the 500 pounds, which is the other half of the requirement, 500 pounds in a room of one's own, isn't literally 500 pounds, but it is the economic ability to not have to spend as much time maybe worrying about where your next meal is going to come from, or whether you can pay for your electric bill, things along those lines, that economic reality. And in a larger sense, if we are going to talk about money, it kind of reminds me of how there are some inspirational, motivational speakers and things who say, oh yes, well, what you and Bill Gates have in common is that you both have 24 hours in the day, right? Nobody has any more time in the day than anybody else. And of course, the response to that is, yeah, that is true. However, Bill Gates can pay people to do all of the things that I have to do on my own. Bill Gates can pay people to clean my house, to do the dishes. Well, he's not going to pay people to clean my house, but you get the point. He can pay people to clean the house and do the dishes and do the laundry and take care of the kids and walk the dogs. He can pay people to sort through his investments. He can pay people to go through legal issues. Bill Gates can pay people to do the stuff that takes up most people's time. And so that means that Bill Gates' 24 hours are largely his own, whereas mine are not. Mine are taken up by a lot of other stuff. So yeah, the 500 pounds a year that Woolf says are necessary is not literally 500 pounds. It's the ability to have the financial resources that give you some amount of freedom to then do the thing that you want to do, where you can say, my basic needs are filled, now I can stop and I can do the creative thing that I wanted to do. So I like that. And yeah, overall, I think the way that she writes, there's again, a lot of long discursive sentences. It does get into, as any good sort of argument should, it starts fairly obvious. She starts with some fairly clear symbols and clear ideas, right? The economic differences between these two colleges of Oxbridge and Farnham. And she introduces that. And then as she goes on, her ideas do get more complicated and more interesting until by the end, she's actually sort of beginning to get into issues that would be taken up by like trans rights, right? But the idea of are our minds, our souls, if you will, are they truly all masculine or all feminine, or are the best minds, the best creative minds, are they not a hybrid of the two? Are they not androgynous? Is there a certain male femaleness or female maleness? And she does start to get into that idea, which of course, if she had tried to introduce that at the beginning of the book, would have fallen flat. It wouldn't have worked, because she has to spend the whole book exploring why men and women see the world differently, and then get to the point where, well, maybe the best of us, the most creative of us, the happiest of us, indeed, don't pick a side, as it will. They don't say, I'm going to be a man, but they have to sort of accept both parts of their nature. And by that acceptance, by calming the conflict within, in a sense, then they are able to produce beautiful art and to do the things that make them happy. So again, it is a lovely book. It's a pleasure to read. It is short. However, it is, for being short, it's not a quick read, but it is a lovely read, and I enjoy picking it up every time I teach it. So go ahead, pick it up, enjoy it. Tell me what your favorite interesting metaphor or analogy is in the book. There's a ton of them. Or what your favorite line or quote is from the book. There's a lot of those as well. And then we will get back to it at another time, I'm sure. But in the meantime, thank you very much for stopping by, and I will see you next time.